Welcome to the White Knuckle Podcast with your hosts, Jason Science and Dr. Clint McCoy.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the White Knuckle Podcast, episode number 124. We're quickly approaching that 125 mark, which is time's flying by here. Tonight, I'm not joined by Dr. Clint McCoy. He's out taking care of some business down in Illinois. I am, however, joined on the other end by Mr. Terry Peer. For those of you who have listened to the show before, you'll recognize Terry's name from a couple other podcasts that we've had where we talked with Terry about real-world wildlife products. And Terry, what is your position at Real World? First of all, how's it going tonight?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Jason. And sorry your partner in crime can't join us. So I was looking forward to that, but I understand he's got priorities that he has to take care of tonight.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
So my role with Real World started just, I've been friends with Don Higgins now, 15, 16 years. And I was in the outdoor industry. We actually met through a filming team that was sponsored by Matthews. That's how we kind of made our connection. And I decided being on that end of the outdoor industry wasn't for me. I really like running businesses. I really like consumer behavior and marketing. So I kind of got out of it for a little bit, and then Don and a former partner of his decided they wanted to rebrand Real World, which at that time it was Real Wildlife Seed. And I agreed to come on and help them for 3 months, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was either 4 or 5 years ago. So I'm there to basically help Don and his new partner, Wes Delps, with business strategy, marketing decisions, and then I get the opportunity to be on the other side of it, and I coordinate all of our pro staffs and outlets like White Knuckle Production, which we've been a partner with now for many years. So it's fun. I like the business side of it a whole lot better than I like being in front of a camera. It's just not my style.
So you said you have a background in marketing. What you don't
Yes,
you don't work for Don full time. What is it that you do when you're not working for Don?
So I'm the only, and technically, I guess everyone else at Real World is full time. So I have a normal job. I'm the general manager of a company called Mazak Corporation. It's a Japanese machine tool company. So that's where the majority of my time is spent outside of coaching high school fast pitch softball. So, like I said, my role with Real World is very small relative to the hours that Don, Wes, Janice, Dwayne, all of our other guys put in. But I came up through marketing. That's what, by, I guess, education, both my undergraduate and graduate degrees are both with the business side. And I don't get to dabble too much on a daily basis anymore with marketing, except for I'm responsible for our relationships with Penske Racing, or Team Penske is what it's called now, and their outlets through IndyCar and NASCAR and a couple other platforms. So I do get to see a lot of that and find a lot of parallels between the outdoor industry and motorsports. So get to dabble in a little bit, but don't get to play in the consumer behavior side of it on a daily basis at work.
Okay. So you said you work with Penske a lot. I see that often on your Facebook post. That's got to be fun when they're racing.
Yeah. And I guess that was my biggest fear in the outdoor industry is when you create something and make it a job, it's a little less enjoyable. Mm-hmm. So I find that with what I do, I'm not a huge race nut. In other words, I don't just follow it like crazy. But when I can see and I appreciate the business strategy that goes into running a race team, working with sponsor affiliates, trying to create branding opportunities and opportunities for companies to showcase what they do, whether it be in the consumer behavior or tangible consumer goods or, with services, to be able to make an outlet or impression to potential customers. I really get into that side of seeing it every day. So, just with your background, I think, in the auto industry and now in real estate, anytime we can find ways to assist our company or an affiliate company to get in touch with another partner or potential customer and connect those dots, that's a really neat aspect of what I get to do.
Absolutely. It's all about connecting the dots, isn't it? Whether it's people, whether it's processes, and it's amazing how it works sometimes.
And then consumer behavior continues to change so fast, and it's really affecting the outdoor industry right now. It's really affecting motorsports as, traditional marketing dollars are not spent the same way now that they were even 3 and 4 years ago. And, the guys in the outdoor industry will be the first to say that. Motorsports will be the same way. Social influencing has become such a vital part of the consumer buying cycle. So now, let's say let's go back to your days as a car salesman. You would have people come into the lot years ago to learn about the car, right?
Right.
Well, before they even come to the lot, they probably now already have a decision of what they think they want, what the lowest price is, and even what their trade-in is going to be. So for you as a salesman to overcome what they think they want and what your job is, it's completely different now. And, as we look at and compare and contrast the outdoor industry or motorsport, we have to recognize that as there's so much information out there for people to find, and some of it's good and some of it's bad. How do we market our product and align messages through our partners that make a difference in running our business?
It's a delicate balancing act anymore with whatever product or service it is that you're marketing. There's so much available to the consumer. I find at times it's hard to know when enough is enough, and that's yep. Something that's definitely the challenge in marketing. One of the reasons that originally we talked about getting together and having you on the show is because I just get inundated at times with requests for new team members, and you've been around this for a long time, and certainly you work with a lot of different pro staffs, and I guess I'd like to hear your take on because I feel like I do a horrible job at setting the bar, so to speak, for new members. What advice would you give somebody who is interested in getting into this crazy outdoor industry? What would you tell them is important?
Well, I think we need to step back just a quick second, and I know Don and I are going to do a full episode on the Chasing Giants podcast to talk about just getting into the industry as a whole. But specifically to, I want to be a pro staff member on a team, or I want to be part of the industry. What you first have to decide, who am I? Okay, who do I want to be? Because viewers have been tainted, and this is just as transparent as I can be. But the bottom line is, viewers are now tainted about the whole pro staff, sellout mentality, where guys bounce around from every single sponsor every single year. They're with somebody else. There is no real loyalty anymore. So there's this stigma or bad perception of a pro staffer. So you don't want to put yourself into a situation where it's, I'll shoot whatever Bo gives me one for free. I think where people need to be honest with themselves and say, who am I and what do I align with as a person and as a hunter or as a land manager? And then from there, you go and you try to find companies that are teams that align with who you are, because the public will see through somebody being fake in a heartbeat. Okay. And what I mean by that, this is just an example. I'm not judging, but let's say that part of your whole story that you want to portray or you want to be part of is the social aspect of a bunch of guys sitting around a fire pit at night after a hunt, drink a beer, and busting each other's chops, and showing the locker room mentality of boys deer camp. Mm-hmm. The last thing you want to do is go position yourself to a very faith-based Christian organization that wants to portray the more social outreach and missions that they're affiliated with, like the reason we work with Matthews. So, again, in whichever way you want to be, that's fine. But I think the public sees through people who are trying to be fake in effort to get a sponsor. So I'd say that's step number one. Step number two is I think you have to do research and you have to meet people at different companies to find out what their objectives are. So the transition in the industry has gone from selling through technology and why are we different to selling a lifestyle. And I'll explain that here in a minute. But it used to be it was commodity and how quickly, easy access and cheap I can get a product versus the high-end stuff. Now it's more, I want to be affiliated and part of something. So the example I can give you there is the Sitka and the Yeti. Okay? If you really look at Yeti's advertisement and how they do their outreach, do you really see them talking about how good their cooler is?
Nope.
I don't know that I've ever seen a commercial or an outreach marketing spot from Yeti that talks about how good or why they're better. They're promoting a social side of what it's like to be part of a Yeti, or you having a Yeti in the back of your cooler. Or you can go to another one like Real World is a perfect example where we're selling based on technology, or we're selling based on why we're different and the aspects of our product provide an advantage, a tangible advantage on the backside to a customer. Well, the reason you have to understand that is because that's how you're going to sell your outlet to your following. So if I'm going to someone, say I'm a pro staffer and I'm going to White Knuckle or I'm going to Real World and say, hey, I want to be part of your team, I want to be prepared and know what their style of outreach and their style of selling is, so that I can use examples of what I can do with my social network to promote that brand. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So if I want to do a lot of lifestyle photos of me, fly fishing in a river and me walking through the woods, great, fine. You need to be able to showcase that with the companies that's their style of selling. If I want to get somebody on board with Real World, they better know details about different group numbers of soybeans and why tissue analysis is important, because that's who I need to help portray that message to my target audience. So I think where people are missing it right now is they're selling out and just going for whoever gives them an opportunity or wherever they can get a free ride. And number two, they don't do the research up front before they have that conversation to pitch themselves or their social network. So what ends up happening is when people first get into the industry and they might have somebody, okay, you're on such and such field staff. Most of the time, the companies that are giving that stuff out to anybody and everybody are more startup companies or more people trying to build their brand. What they find is 4, 5, 6 years into the road, that company starts identifying their branding and they start pulling back. So that's where you hear a lot of people say, I was loyal to these companies for so many years and now they're leaving me, hanging out. Well, there was no real alignment of those two parties to begin with, and they kind of went separate directions. So find the people up front that align with who you want to be, and then do your research and talk to people. Go to ATA and don't just hand them a media kit. or send the marketing director an email and say, I want to be you, or I want to represent you. Ask questions and find out how they want to be represented first. That's my two best suggestions for you.
Well, those are great suggestions, and I would say that it's spot on, just because you need to put some careful thought into what it is that you're getting yourself into before you waste a whole lot of your own time and your own money. Because let's be honest, this is not a money making endeavor. For you've been on the TV side of things. There was some expense you incurred as a result of saying yes. I'm sure it wasn't there.
It used to be more than what it is now. I mean,
right.
It used to be. I remember when we walked through ATA the first time that we had like a $10,000 camera. Those cameras back then were expensive, and now you can buy. I mean, good grief! I think the camera rig I run now is you could probably buy it for under $2,000 with the wireless mics and everything, and it's so. So the cost has actually even come down a little bit as far as the camera equipment, but the avenues in which companies can socially influence the consumer buying cycle and the decision making is so much different than what it was back then. So you just have to adapt, and the companies and the groups that are really upset because the business has changed, they're failing to adapt with it. So it's like the old book, Who Moved My Cheese, right? The industry, whether you're talking about motorsports or whether you're talking about the hunting industry, it's drastically changed. And there's these guys that are just left sitting there saying, well, this sucks. I'm not part of this anymore. They're not interested. Well, you failed to adapt with what the companies are having to do. And let's face it, everybody's margins are shrinking. Everybody's marketing budgets are getting cut. And you have to keep adapting to what the sponsors are wanting out of it. So look at motorsports for an example. Okay, it wasn't that many years ago that you had the three main brewing companies on a car the entire year. So you had the Bud Light car, like when it was run by Dale Jr., the Miller Lite car, which was a Penske car at that time. It was like Kurt Busch, then it was Brad Keselowski, and then the Coors Light car was somewhere. They were racing for a championship, but if you don't think that those race teams were trying to see which of the beer cars came in higher or closest to the front every race, you're crazy. There was like a race inside of a race. Now you don't even have half of the season being purchased as a primary from the brewing companies anymore. I think Miller Lite is only doing, I don't know, like maybe a third or half of the season now. So it's completely changed. These cars are being primary sponsors different almost every week on these cars. The industry's definitely changed.
What do you think drives that the most?
I think the cost associated with it, and again, brand awareness and brand loyalty can be attained a different way now through social media, and it's so much more cost effective for customers, for companies.
Right.
You're talking millions and millions of dollars to invest in TV ads, Super Bowl commercials, NASCAR, all this stuff, where they can do a fraction of the cost and use social influencers on social media and get a whole lot more bang for their buck. And the misunderstanding is that there was this phase in social media where people could buy likes. So, I get approached, to put it in perspective, I bet I get 20 requests a day to be on pro or field staff, just to put parameters around. That's how competitive this is, okay?
Yep.
So there is this misconception that, okay, I'll go and I'll buy these likes, or I'll, promote and add stuff to get my number of followers way up. And what was happening is I would have to go in and look at the followers on these accounts, and I'd see, goodness gracious, how can a small group of guys have 38,000 followers, right? So I go in there and start looking. Well, 2/3 of the profiles that follow them are in Arabic. So what does that tell me? That tells me that they have a lot of followers but very low engagement. So what people don't realize now is there's seats of software that the bigger companies are buying that actually measure engagement and not likes or follows. So it's basically holding teams and people accountable. I would rather have a team that has 2,000 followers and engagement of 400 points of interest on every post than have one that has 30 points of interest or 30 pieces of engagement and 60,000 followers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not the quantity, it's the quality.
Right.
So that software is being run now. It's pretty expensive. There's actually companies that are doing it as outsourcing for companies in the outdoor industry, companies as big as Team Penske, and have invested in it. But again, it keeps changing. You have to adapt with whatever you're doing. Just like a land manager or a hunter, you're consistently looking at your property and adapting because conditions might change.
Right. How much stock do you put in?
I drug that out a long time. You probably weren't expecting that long of an answer, were you?
Well, no, but it's a well thought out answer to a question that gets asked often, and I don't have the right answer very often,
Let's look at it this way from White Knuckle Production to, obviously Real World's on board with you guys. We're honored to be a partner. Who's your other big sponsors?
We've got Ozonics, Lone Wolf, of course, you guys.
Okay, so let's just look at those three right there.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So, which Lone Wolf are you with?
The Lone Wolf portable.
Just to clarify, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're our brother from another mother, Mr. Frank Archie, my buddy from Illinois, right?
Right.
All right. So those three companies right there, I'm going to go and look at if someone approaches me to be a pro staff member of White Knuckle Production, I'm going to go through and I'm going to look at what they do and what's been their outlets for marketing collateral, which they don't even consider that. They think it's just their posts and how they represent themselves on social media or in their video output, right?
Right.
So Lone Wolf, they're not the cheapest out there by any means. They're selling the opportunity of, number one, made in America, number two, a lightweight two-spec stand with the highest safety standards of anything on the market. But it's a big, comfortable stand that you can hang very, very quiet, very, very fast, and you're very mobile. Okay? Ozonic, you're selling a technology there. That's not just a gimmick. You're having to explain how the science of ozone works. With Real World, we're not just another food plot or mineral company. We test and try to make specific products to whitetail. So if someone approaches me and wants to be a team member of White Knuckle, I look at my sponsors and I say, okay, well, based on what this guy does, all he's doing is taking selfies in a tree stand. There's no story or product or technology that he's able to relay. He's more of a lifestyle guy. He's more of a social interaction. It's Real Tree Road Trips versus the Jury's 13. Two different platforms that are both very successful, just completely different styles, right?
Right.
So based on who my sponsors are, that I have to maintain accountability to them to relay the message because I want them to be a sponsor next year. I need people on my team capable of doing that, and that's how I make my decision, at least at Real World.
Well, that's a good way of looking at it. I guess the one thought that came to mind as you were talking about that, as I think back to this person or that person, and there's times that I'd just like to say, get the horse in front of the cart first, and that's the best favor you could do yourself, is to get the horse in front of the cart. When I joined White Knuckle, I'll never forget approaching Todd at the Madison Deer and Turkey Expo is what it was called then. Now it's whatever it is. Well, I guess this year what it isn't. and, saying, Todd, can you look at this, demo reel that I gave him of my work? And he did. And I called him and he said, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
I could hear Todd saying that.
And that's in true Todd's style. He's like, but I'm not going to tell you, you can't be on our team. He said, if you'd like to learn, come to the film school and we can go from there.
Right.
So David and I did, and away we went. And somehow I got myself wrapped up in it farther along the way. And it's probably more for the love of the, I always say the project, but the vision that Todd had for the company, and it's a vision that I think a lot of our partners share, and that's why Todd was so attracted, to Real World from the beginning, is because a lot of those core values align, and I think that's probably something that people don't think that really happens, and that's that we actually do have some thought into why it is that we are partnered with who we're partnered with. Not, yes, they have a great product. There's a lot of great products out there. I think we'd be misleading people to say that there's not any other good food plot company or mineral companies out there, but our values align with yours. You talked about being a faith-based business, and we're not afraid to say that we are. You guys aren't afraid to say that you are, and I know that that's part of again, your core values, so it matches up with ours. So those are all things that you need to take into consideration.
Yeah, I don't want to get on a huge soapbox, but again, it goes back to identify who you are and be true to that, right? That's part of the bad perception that pro staff or industry affiliated people are getting from hunters right now. I've shot big deer. I haven't shot as big a deer as Don. Don's crazy. He's in the LeBron James version. I'm like in the D3 NAIA college level, and he's like the best player in the world. But the misconception is I don't need a wall full of booners to help a company market their product, right?
Right.
But don't act like you know everything about it, right? What drives me absolute bonkers is when the people get up there with literally no credibility, no experience, and then make it sound like they're an expert in something. Be true to yourself and who you are, and I can use someone like that to tell our story just as well as I can somebody who goes in and shoots a 160 plus every year. It's just I have to use that story and that outlet for the marketing collateral to tell the story of what I'm doing to help that person. But we get these people that think that they're experts on everything. I mean, I stay out of all the hunting forums and social media because it drives me bonkers. It's like these people just chew guys out for, hey, you should have let that deer grow another year, and you go to their profile and they've never killed anything over 120 inches. It's like everybody's an expert now.
Right.
So be true to yourself. There's still places in this industry that people can be part of and enjoy the interaction, the camaraderie. There's a bunch of great people in this industry, but don't try to be somebody you're not. And good grief, there is people out there claiming that they know as much as Don and Mark Drury, and it's like, you guys just need to, it's almost a little bit of pay your dues and just come along with it and learn and document your learning. But it's like they won't swallow their pride and admit that they're still just learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just be true to yourself. There's a place for everybody to be used and part of this, the industry as a whole. But man, don't be somebody that you're not.
I think that was the biggest aha moment for me in this whole podcasting thing was, Todd didn't want to do it, and little did we know that it was going to turn out to be, the next coolest thing to do. I just thought it was a good avenue, and I could see it growing. And I remember starting out, just again trying to be one of the people that I had heard on other podcasts, and it just didn't work for me. You'll never hear me proclaim to be an expert on hunting. Part of the selfish reason for doing this is so that I can learn more. And every year I seem like I learn less, and I'm humbled more. And it's so true. Just be who you are, and you'll find your place somewhere. And
Don wanted me to do some land consulting, and like, Don, I'm not good enough to do land consulting. He's like, Terry, you shot really big deer. You've set up properties. I'm like, still, I don't have near the confidence in hunting and setting up properties as I do in marketing and running a business. I was like, that's where my confidence is. I don't really necessarily want to go to someone's property and tell them how to set it up. I'm still, it's really cool when Don, who's been a mentor of mine for 15 plus years, has also become one of my best friends, and having that to somebody I get to talk to daily and just try to be a sponge from him, and also be one of my best friends. That's the best part about my role with Real World.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You always got to keep learning. Always got to keep learning.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Your role with Real World has sort of changed a little bit here recently, with the Chasing Giants podcast. That's got to be beneficial. That's got to be beneficial for your hunting career.
Well, Don and I kind of did this separately. Real World is actually a sponsor of Chasing Giants. So Chasing Giants is a podcast that we just, we're not here at 124 episodes. I think we just recorded, I believe, 18 last night and released it today. But we wanted to, it all started 2 years ago where Don started doing what he called a rut report on social media. And Don hunts every day. So whether or not he's in the tree stand, if it's hunting season, he's either hunting, glassing, or doing something. So when it got to be mid-October, he would come in every night and basically just, what did I see? What are my observations? Patterns with weather, coming up forecasts and changing. And the engagement that he was having on his Higgins Outdoors website was huge, Jason. I mean, he was getting like, I don't know, it was like 25,000 views on this thing when we would run engagement reports. People were looking at him to see, what was going on, what was he saying, what was his plans, right?
Yeah.
So after 2 years of this, we just thought that there is a lot of great podcasts. Don's been on White Knuckle before. Wes, I think, has been on White Knuckle here recently, where you guys have the advantage where you can pull like somebody that has a niche skill set. So we want to dive into trail camera placement, or we want to dive into moon phases and, get Adam Hayes or whoever, whatever person and dive into specific topics that are for land managers and deer hunters. What we didn't have that we thought out there was one podcast to follow one guy 365 days a year, because I'm not kidding, Jason. Don is doing something for deer every day of the year. And I'm not exaggerating one bit. Every single day of the year, he's doing something through Higgins Outdoors, through Real World, or on his own property, for deer hunting. So he and I kind of went off and kind of came up with this idea called Chasing Giants, where it just follows him. And Real World is obviously a sponsor of that, and we have a couple other sponsors that have really stepped behind us and like the direction of what we're doing. But it basically just follows Don and I all year long. And I don't know that we've ever even really had a guest on the podcast. We have live audiences that ask us questions every now and then. Frank Archie, our buddy from Lone Wolf, was actually at Don's one night when we were recording, and he jumped on there and joked around with us for a little bit. But pretty much it's just following one person through the entire year. So a little bit different format that's out there. That's a little bit different twist. So hopefully it's something that people can learn from. But it's a little bit separate from real world. As far as my hunting career, I'll be honest with you, I'm content sitting back where I'm at. I don't need to be in the forefront as much.
Right. No, I can identify with that.
Let me shoot a 6 or 7 year old every year, and I'm perfectly fine with it. But the funny thing is,
not a bad.
The funny thing is people don't realize how much Don and I disagree on stuff, and that's part of it. Part of the show. Don is probably the most conservative hunter when it comes to putting pressure on a property. He lives in a mecca property it's not big, but it's completely set up for whitetails, and he can follow a strategy that not a lot of people can. I'm from Kentucky. I hunt differently, whether people like it or not. The culture down here is we can hunt over bait. That's well accepted, and boy, that starts a bunch of arguments for people that don't like that, but it is what it is. When I travel to Illinois, I'm coming in from out of state with limited time, with properties that I've gotten access to, whether it's by lease or just permission. So I'm a little bit more aggressive. So hearing us kind of go back and forth, we agree on a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of stuff we don't agree on. And, when it comes down to it, I hope you believe Don before you believe me on anything. But I think we relate to a lot of different outdoorsmen that are hunting at different points in their career with different goals. So I love shooting big deer, but boy, I've gotten hooked to shooting deer that are over 5 years old.
I don't
care how big they are.
Right, exactly.
I don't care how. I mean, don't get me wrong. If a net booner walks by tomorrow, I'm targeting that deer and going to try to kill that deer. But Don's in a different. I asked him one time. I said, "How big would a deer have to be if you were hunting a property and you'd never seen him before, don't have any history from him, for you to shoot him?" He kind of looked at me because, he's all about the story and the history with the deer. He wants to let that deer grow up and document it year after year after year and then kill it when it's a world-class animal. And he never really even gave me an answer. Now, I'm not going to hesitate. I'm going to poke a hole in it, right? but no, since I killed that 10.5-year-old on Don's farm years ago, it's got me hooked into... I really don't care if I can target a buck that I think is over 5 years old. That's a tough animal to kill. And if I can put a plan together with food plots and bedding and nutrition and hunting techniques in order to harvest him, that's my ultimate goal every year.
What I've got so many thoughts running through my mind in so many directions that we could go. What's the biggest disagreement that you guys have with respect to? First, let me just back up. I think that people need to understand first and foremost that context is meaning, and you have to consider the context, like you just mentioned. Your situation is very different than Don's going in, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that's context. So you have to. If everybody just slowed down and realized they're not Don Higgins or Mark Drury or
sure.
and took that into context, they would understand that the level of their success is maybe they are succeeding at the highest level available to them. You have to take those things into context.
I think people have to set a goal, and Don and I talk about this a lot. People have to set a goal, a realistic goal that challenges themselves, and then be disciplined for that goal. If you're a meat hunter And if it's brown and it's down, and it walks by and it's got a spike, and I'm all for you killing that deer. If that's what you want out of this sport, I will support you 100%. If your goal is to kill a 120, kill a 140, go for it. If your goal is age structure, antler size, go for it, but be disciplined. But what we can't do is, as an outdoorsman, is criticize somebody else or not support somebody else for what their goals and objectives are. Right? This industry is so divided right now. And Don and I agree, and we run parallel with that 100% of the time. What we try to discourage people away from is, don't set a goal and then just because it's the end of the season, fall back and not stand up for your goal, because then you don't challenge yourself as an outdoorsman. Okay,
right?
Try to make yourself better. Try to do different things with your property to succeed, and up in a notch. And our society's gotten to the point now where they want instant gratification and instant answers. So these people that come on social media and say, I'm on a pro staff, I got to go out and put all this pressure on me to kill a 180-inch deer. Well, I've done this for a long time, and the hardest part about killing a 180-inch deer is finding a 180-inch deer. Okay? So it's not like you can go from beginner hunting status and go be Don Higgins right away. I heard somebody recently say, you got to learn how to shoot a deer before you can kill them consistently, right?
Absolutely.
So start out with where you are in your path with this sport that we all love, set a goal, and then keep going on. And Don and I, we run very parallel with that, and we're even at different stages. And it's hard for me to hang around Don as much as I am and not get jealous or not get mad when I can't pull the results that he can. But I have young kids at home. I have a full-time job. I hunt out of state. He does it full time. And it's two different scenarios of where we're at, but I'm not going to also make that as an excuse of why I can't do it. I'm still going to put my work in and set my goals. And if I have to have a tag sandwich because I set certain goals, then I'll have a tag sandwich at the end of the year.
Right.
I actually did not kill a buck in Illinois with a bow this year. I filled 2 of my 3 tags this year and I had plenty of opportunities, but it just wasn't the deer that I'd set out to do, to kill this year. So, was fortunate enough to kill a 6.5-year-old here on my property in Kentucky that I'd watched for 3 years. I did kill a deer with a shotgun in, Illinois that we wanted shot off the property. He was a target buck and, just didn't see the deer I wanted with a bow. So where we disagree or where we don't align, Don is strictly a bow hunter. I wouldn't say that he's against gun hunting. It's just he wants no part of it. He basically takes the biggest challenge in the woods. I come from a mindset that if it's legal, I'm hammering on it. I have no problems with crossbows, even if people don't have disabilities. Don stresses, that's probably our biggest one is the crossbow thing. Don would be 100% for supplemental feeding, but would never hunt over bait. The way I grew up and where I'm from, that's an everyday thing, man. I have no problem poking a hole in a deer with 2 feet in the side of a corn pile. But it's just where you're from and what values you were brought up with. And there's people that are anti that, and there's people that think it's stupid to think like that.
Well,
I'd say crossbows, feeding, and guns are probably where we kind of deviate more. I tend to be a little bit more aggressive with wind directions than he is because I have limited amount of time and access to vacation.
Well, that again is all part of the context of,
Yep, absolutely.
It's
but it's still, you're absolutely right. You have to put it in context that not all of us are able to do what Don does. We just take bits and pieces of the people like Don, what they can give us to make us a better hunter, and we keep raising our bar. I hope that my goals are more challenging in 3 years than what they are this upcoming year. that means that I'm continuing to grow as an outdoorsman, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. You just got to keep moving in the right direction.
Yep. Yeah, and don't bash somebody because their goals are different than yours. I mean, if somebody's happy, man, as long as they did it ethically and legally, man, I'm right there cheering them on, just like it was me killing another 10.5-year-old, which I know was a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'll never be able to find another 10-year-old that we have documented to try to kill.
Right. Any final? I've taken almost an hour of your time here. Any other final thoughts?
Well, I mean, from the real world side, we just appreciate what White Knuckle has done for us over the years. We sure do miss Todd. Still get a little emotional every once in a while thinking about him crying over that monster deer. I see a clip of it every once in a while. He was so passionate about this industry and so passionate about big bucks. People don't realize the risks that Todd took, going out to Iowa, and also on the business side, the risks he took over the years to chase the passion. If people would understand that, they would understand why he was so emotional when he killed that deer. But we truly appreciate you guys, carrying the torch of it, and value you guys as a partner. I want to continue to support it. I know we're working. You and I talked earlier tonight about a new project that I'm really excited about. If we end up doing that and sharing that with your audience through the year, can't wait for that to be an outlet, and hopefully people can learn something from that and give you guys a shot at a target buck. And from the Chasing Giants and my partner on that, Don Higgins, through Higgins Outdoors, just give it a listen. It's a little bit different format. We take at least 2 to 3 listener submitted questions every episode. So you can get on HigginsOutdoors.com and submit questions. We give away a free t-shirt, Chasing Giants t-shirt, for every question that we use on an episode. So it's kind of catered a little bit to follow Don and I through the whole season, but also to talk about what the listeners want to talk about. So give that a listen and appreciate the support. But always glad to get down and talk about hunting, and especially when it gets into me nerding out on consumer behavior and marketing. I probably went a little bit too deep on that.
Well, I could have done that a long time. It's hard to know where to spend your money, and I'll tell you what, it's one thing to spend the boss's money. It's another thing when it's your own.
Yes, sir.
Well, we had our shed hunt this past weekend, and because of the situation, we had just a few folks in. I had to limit it,
right,
just because I couldn't have that many people at the lodge where we were staying.
Sure.
And but we got a chance to record a podcast that aired today, and that was great. And when all is said and done, we appreciate, I guess, to put it simply, your faith in us to continue carrying the torch that Todd lit so long ago, and we appreciate the confidence that you guys put in us, and we couldn't.
At the end of the day, loyalty has to work both ways, and we both have to continue to adapt. And if that's a lesson for all of your listeners to hear it from both a manufacturer and a pro staff, and I'm even on both sides of it now with Chasing Giants, because I have sponsors to worry about. But loyalty works both ways, but both parties also have to continue to adapt, to be creative, to give the listeners or viewers something tangible that they can learn from and be entertained. And I think you guys do a fantastic job with that. And episode 124, wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, we've got an exciting year planned. We've probably got 140 episodes that are cut and will be ready to go. Thanks in large part to you. You're probably wondering where I'm going with that, but the little tip that you gave me at the ATA show when I asked you what the box was that you had there, I think I ordered it.
Did you get you one?
Yeah, you may not remember, but I ordered it while you were standing there telling me about it.
No, I didn't know you ordered it. I know we pulled it up on Amazon, so
yeah,
it makes it easy, right?
Yeah, Exactly. I hit buy it now, and we got the guys around the table Saturday night, and they're like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Just check this out." And everybody was happy. But yeah, I mean,
I want to tell you something. Don Higgins and I can go in and set up a property, and we can kill deer, but neither one of us are into editing videos and audio files. So the board we're talking about for all the listeners, it's a board that you plug headsets and mics into, and you can mix and record your podcast live. And Don and I do zero post-production, man. When I hit record, that's what gets uploaded. And we have a lot of fun doing it. But, man, if we had to do post-production on it, we'd have to have another partner in that thing because neither one of us have time or ability to do that.
It's made my life.
Yeah, but it makes it nice.
A lot easier. Absolutely. Well, hey,
Yes,
thanks for taking the time and spending an hour with us. And it's not going to be the last time that you probably hear from Terry on the show. Hopefully we can put something, whether it's you or Don or a combination of the two. I think that we've got some fun stuff planned, and we'll be excited to, I guess, unveil that a little bit later in the year here. But
yeah, give us a follow on social media, realworldwildlifeproducts.com. Higgins Outdoors and Terry Peer. All of us have Instagram and Facebook pages, so give us a follow and look forward to. I'm excited about this project we talked about. I'm really looking forward to it.
Good deal. Well, again,
all right, brother, you take care.
All right, thanks much.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it, another episode of the White Knuckle Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and hope you picked up a few nuggets of information along the way that you can use down the road. I want to take just a second and thank our partner in this endeavor, and that is UC Hunting Properties. Without them, this couldn't be possible. You guys all know that I work with UC Hunting Properties, and they're actually nationwide. I would encourage you, for any of your property needs, go to www.uchuntingproperties.com. Thanks for listening. Jason out.